It's official, Modern has to be the best 1v1 60 card constructed format. Just take a look at this MTG Goldfish screenshot from the last 30 days. We have a big swath of diversity from different archetypes being able to be played, as well as price accessibility comparable to many other formats. But is there something underlying here? Yes, percentages do mean something and numbers do have value, but how we interpret that also is something else. And in today's video, I wanted to take a bit of a deep dive as what's going on with Modern right now. What are recent sets that have big effects on the current Modern metagame? And is that effect pushing Modern in a good direction? And is there something we can look forward to in the future when it comes to speeding Modern up or slowing it down? Especially with the BNR announcement around the corner, I think we need to take a good look at one of Magic's most popular formats. Just take a look at this Modern metagame here. Extremely diverse just by the numbers itself. Even by archetypes, you can see a very good breakdown. Amulet Titan at the top of the metagame is contentious. A lot of people are frustrated by this deck, but I think it's due to lack of understanding. It has a very rather complicated play pattern and multiple lines to try and win the game. I'm not going to go over them right now. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an Amulet expert, but I've gotten a lot better at understanding it and honestly playing it thanks to playing a little bit of Lumina combo and Pioneer. But it's a land-based strategy. Goryo's Vengeance, a mid-range strategy that honestly has a lot of analogous framework to what legacy decks are like right now. A mid-range tempo plan with a quote-unquote I win button in the Goryo's Vengeance Reanimator plan. Is it prowess? Hyper fast, using Cory Seal Cutter and a bunch of free spells to power up your prowess creatures, alongside Affinity that recently got a huge piece of juice that we're going to talk about later, because honestly, I think decks like Affinity and decks like Blink are probably part of my central thesis for this video. I don't want to bury the lead too much, but Edge of Eternities may just be one of the single greatest sets of Magic the Gathering in recent memory. More than Tarkir Dragonstorm or any in-universe set that we've seen. Actually, in my opinion, probably more impactful than the kind of Universes Beyond sets when it comes to an actual metagame presence to actually affecting the way 60 card constructed works. Boros Energy, no longer necessarily the top deck in the metagame. Domain Zoo, Eldrazi Tron, 3 different variations of Blink, all very different with their packages, but working around the same pillars. Belcher near the top has shifted a little bit down, but Belcher won Pro Tour Edge of Eternities, right? This is still a top deck in the metagame alongside 2 different types of Eldrazi. This is more like an Eldrazi Tron slower variation. You're playing the Tron lands. Eldrazi here, it still uses the Eldrazi temples and the Soul lands, but you're going a more aggressive route with like Eldrazi Linebacker and all that. Ruby Storm, Jeskai Control, Yawgmoth. All of these decks form a metagame that appears, as I mentioned, so diverse that it can really only, in my opinion, be compared to Pauper. And the reason I mentioned this is Pauper is really great in practice. It may seem slightly off, right? You have Madness Burn at the top at 13%, then you have 10, 9, 6, and 5. But the top 2 decks in the metagame out of maybe like 3 or 4 are highly interactive decks. Blue Terror is a blue-based tempo control, more so on the control side of things, deck at the top, whereas Jund Wildfires is the second coming of modern Jund. Quite literally, Jund Wildfires is one of the most interactive decks in the Pauper metagame. So much removal, so much interaction, plays to an onboard plan. Grixis Affinity, a tempo affinity version of what is the affinity aggro version that poops out a bunch of things maybe in the modern format. All of this exists at the top, with even combo existing in a healthy fashion at the top of the Pauper metagame. Now that's in practice versus maybe what the percentages show. But when it comes to the modern metagame, there might actually be something underlying here, because yes, the percentages show a wide variety of decks being able to exist at the top, and we see, and we will see from the competitive events that we're going to take a look at that happened more recently, there is a wide variety of decks that are able to be at the top, but we have to also look at play patterns. That's why I wanted to bring up the Pauper comparison. By play pattern and by interaction, Pauper is really diverse and really healthy. Pauper is probably the single best 60 card constructed format right now, bar none. Like, I don't even think there's a single argument to that because of power level, diversity, interaction, and viability at the top. Pauper's the best. I would argue Modern is very close with an asterisk. So let's explore that today. Regional Championship Houston is the most recent thing we had. And the top 8 of the format here. You know, Jeskai Blink won the event, Boros Energy at second, Prowess, Titan, Goryo's, Affinity, Prowess again, Jeskai Blink again. So we have 6 different archetypes at the top here. We have a wide spread of what is even viable. And I mean, honestly, Azorius Control just getting knocked out of top 8 right at the end there, I think is very notable, especially since we're going to go into the Pro Tour Edge of Eternity's results. The second best deck in that format in that tournament was a control variant. It was Jeskai, not Azorius, but it's nice to know in a metagame where you can expect a set amount of decks and you know what to play against, control can really make its way to the top. And so that is what I would consider a sign of a healthy metagame, when control is able to thrive based on predictability and not just one deck taking over where control isn't good enough to beat that. I think control being able to exist in such a wide variety of a format here, I think, again, is a sign of a great, healthy metagame. But a lot of these decks here could be considered really fast. Boros Energy has been a top deck in the modern metagame for a really long time. Izzet Prowess is an extremely fast deck, sometimes even boasting turn 3 wins. Now, it's not necessarily that it's getting you from 20 to 0 on that turn, but it might provide an overwhelming pressure. Definitely by turn 4, I think a lot of times this deck really does present a win, which is, in my opinion, a great time to do that. Amulet Titan, I've seen people quote like, oh yeah, I lose to turn 2 by Amulet. Like, I don't think that's happening as consistently as people are saying it is. I think you can do it on turn 3 relatively consistently, but especially once you get to that 3 and 4 range, you are really opening up the possibility of winning however you want. You cannot let Amulet get there, and I really hope your deck is ready to interact with Amulet by at least turn 2 or turn 3. Past that, Esper Goryo's being that mid-range plan, the marquee frog deck, the psychic frog deck, and psychic frog just being such a key piece in so many magic decks where the card is legal in general, just the best mid-range threat out there, banned in Legacy for a reason, for more reasons. You know, pitching to grief and force of will and force of negation definitely didn't help its case. But then on past that, you have Izzet Affinity as well. And I think Affinity is a big reason why you see some of these shifts. In many ways, it feels like modern of old. You have like mid-range strategies that exist at the top. You have combo, you have creature-based strategies, you have Amulet Titan, you still have Tron somewhere up there as well. You have value blink style strategies. Like, they all exist at the top of the metagame. And one thing worth noting, especially, is if you look at some of the prices of these decks coming off the side. I mean, Izzet Prowess, only $300. Mono green brood scale, $400 to $500. You know, again, $800 for something like Amulet, best deck in the modern format, right? Like, if you take a look back, like before we go into Pro Tour Edge of Eternities, price is such a big driving factor in why modern is so good. Obviously, Pauper is going to be the cheapest format out there, barring any Lotus Petal decks. But when it comes to the general affordability of a top tier metagame where you have multiple cards that are going to be viable in other strategies. For example, if you have parts of the Blink shell, you are going to be generally able to transfer into other Blink strategies. Obviously, your mana base is going to change and some of the other core parts are going to change, but you have some of the general pieces. And it's hard to say that with many other formats. So many decks are so unique. It's hard to say that you can swap between different decks in many situations. Although there is a fair amount of uniqueness here, the price of these decks really do need to be pointed out, because in my opinion, they are comparable to many other formats. Like, if you take a look at something like Pioneer here, Pioneer right now, Rakdos midrange is a $565 deck, you know, $350 for control here, $400 for mono black midrange. If you take a look at standard right now, Izzet Cauldron $600, and that's an outlier because of like 2 cards. But then past that, Jeskai control is $400, Azorius control almost $400, $450 for aggro, 4-color control is $400, Simic Omniscience is $500. Like, the fact that you can play a top tier modern deck almost to quite literally, if not equal to or less than the price of standard and Pioneer, has to mean something, because the cards and the viability of them really speak to the power of the modern card pool and how well, honestly, in some ways, the standard environment has come to affect Modern Horizons.soup of a format. Now, tournament-wise, the last thing I'm going to look at is Pro Tour Edge of Eternities, where we had Michael De Benedetto Plummer take over with Tameshi Belcher, a combo deck, a mono blue Belcher strategy in 2025, winning at the top at only $591, and I'm pretty sure you can make some concessions on the deck list to even get it cheaper. Tameshi Belcher here, less than $500 at third place. Azorius Control, $350. You can play a modern Azorius Jeskai control deck for the equivalent price of that in Pioneer. A more played format in Modern, with fetches, with full suite of shocks, great mana bases, powerful cards. You can do that in the Modern format. And I think that's really worth pointing out. Not only are we seeing current standard playable cards being played across in Modern, and so you get that kind of mixing and matching that does exist, you also get comparable prices for a high level powerful format. I mean, Simic Neo format, 8th place, 200 ticks online, only $500 like in person. Like, again, some of these prices, I get it. When you compare it to Pokemon, astronomical. When you compare it to even One Piece or Riftbound, you know, relatively new, astronomical prices. But when you compare it to the rest of Magic, to be able to play high power Magic, we're already in this. We're already in this pretty deep. Okay, we can't be compared to other TCGs. We are definitely the more expensive of it. But when it comes to this, when it comes to non-proxy formats like Commander, where you don't need to be buying any of those cards, even to play CDH, you don't need to be buying any of them. The majority, if not all CDH tournaments, in my understanding, are proxy friendly. The format would die without proxies. This is a format where things are relatively really accessible, and even Affinity really makes it to the top because of Mox Opals, if you really think about it. I built into it. I built a Astartes store credit into it and trading out all my Commander staples into it because I want to build into a format that is this accessible and has this much variety. Now, where we need to really take a look at this from a pillar perspective is understand, why did Modern change like this? Because I made plenty of videos on this channel talking about Boros Energies at the top. I'm sick of Modern. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of that. Even though Modern Mill is not at the top, I take a look at a metagame like this, and let me know in the comment section down below if you do not feel the same way. I feel that this is one of the best spots Modern has been in a very long time. Even though my favorite archetype, Modern Mill, is not at the top, I can find fun things to do here. I can find combo. I can find so many flavors of big mana. I can find tempo in so many varieties. I can find aggro. It may not be burn, but Izzet Prowess is pretty damn close. It's just burn with more interaction. It's aggro with more interaction. Boros Energy, Domain Zoo. You have a 5-color deck at the top. Like, Blood Moon still being played out of the sideboard, and a 5-color deck can still exist at the top thanks to, obviously, you know, something like Leyline of the Guild Pact and all that type of stuff. Like, there are ways that 5-color decks can escape with their mana bases by making them slightly less painful, yes. But when it comes to the variety of what you can do, Modern feels like it's in a good place because of some of the revolutionary pieces that exist from Edge of Eternities. And again, a second shout out to it. Edge of Eternities, one of the single best in-universe Magic sets to come out in recent memory. And I'm so happy it was from a sci-fi set, a standard legal set that is chocked full of powerful, just eternal, non-eternal Magic playable staples. Let's start off with the first one in Quantum Riddler. Now, Quantum Riddler is doing a lot. We know this as the marquee blink target. You've seen this in Standard, you've seen this in Modern, you've seen this almost everywhere. This card is so powerful. It doesn't see play in Legacy because you're just doing more powerful things. You don't need to be doing mid-range stuff like this because, you know, Tameo's a thing, right? That's your kind of piece. But I'm wondering, if Legacy sees changes on November 10th and Tameo gets banned, is there space for something like Quantum Riddler to exist? Again, probably not. Legacy's just not that. But you would likely see play like for a card like this in Pioneer if we saw changes for it. If Pioneer actually got 2 seconds instead of Wizards lying to us and saying the format is fine, we could probably see Quantum Riddler get played there. So price goes up even more, whatever it is. But Quantum Riddler in the Modern format has revolutionized the Blink archetype. So first of all, you have Jeskai Blink, right? So for Quantum Riddlers, you are playing Felia, you are playing Ephemerates to some degree, and that is your kind of primary package alongside Solitude. So you play your removal spell in Solitude, you play Felia as your best blink kind of piece that you can flash in, Quantum Riddler as your draw engine, past that you have Ephemerates and sometimes Consigns based on what you're trying to do. So in this Jeskai variation, you're playing Ragavan as your turn 1 threat, which is really powerful. You're then playing Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury, one of the best Titans printed. I still personally think Uro's a little bit better, shoot me, just saying. But being able to consign the Flage trigger is almost as good as trying to ephemerate it. Past that, you can kind of consign the Solitude trigger. You get the evoke triggers off, and then you can also do that with the trigger off of the you get that with the trigger off of the Quantum Riddler for Warp. The power of this is that Consign to Memory helps you against the colorless strategy. So you already are pre-boarded in many ways for not only other blink strategies where you can counter their ETB triggers, but you can also counter the colorless strategies and randomly get like Mox Opals or problematic things against like the Affinity decks. There's a lot of things that Consign to Memory grabs, and being pre-boarded for it is definitely much better than having 4 ephemerates in many cases. At least that's what was thought by Vinny Fino when it came to coming in first place in SCG Houston. Now, Esper midrange is a little bit different here. So you're still playing Quantum Riddler, you're still playing Felia, and you're still playing Ephemerate to a certain degree. You're going to see Consign still exist because triggers are important. The key to this is that when you go black, you end up with more powerful pieces like Psychic Frog and Overlord of the Balemark. Overlord of the Balemark acts as your recursion piece, and that's going to be a way for you to continue to mill through your deck and select its card advantage. Past that, it also feeds your graveyard to activate and give Psychic Frog kind of functionally unblockable. There are a fair amount of flyers in the format, of course, opposing Quantum Riddlers and maybe, you know, the Stray Murktide Regent. But Psychic Frog itself is a very powerful piece to be able to continue to draw cards. Alongside something like a Quantum Riddler, what you can do is Quantum Riddler trigger on the stack, you can discard cards down to 1, and then Quantum Riddler will allow you to draw 2 cards. You're back up to 3 cards from 1 to 3. And then back on your turn, on your upkeep, you can discard down to the Psychic Frog and do the same thing again. You can go down to 1, you're back up to 3 cards. The combination of these 2 cards are really powerful as a tempo value piece to be able to continue to find more and more options. And cards drawn in 2s are very powerful in a format where you need to be pitching cards to Subtlety, pitching cards to Overlord, to something like even Solitude in other type of variations. Drawing cards in 2 is really, really powerful. And Felia just hyper powers that when it comes to just like what this deck is able to do. Bring back the Overlord of the Balemark, keep your subtleties. Well, it's not going to be able to keep your subtleties. You're going to have to consign that and ephemerate that, but it's going to be able to allow you to reuse them for whatever reason, right? Like if you need to kind of ephemerate them or, you know, kind of bounce them in any other way, maybe return them with the Teferi and play them again. There's so many things that are happening in this deck that are very different from what the Jeskai variant is doing, being more aggressive, playing the Flages, playing more removal, threatening with the Ragavans, whereas this is playing a slower, recursive plan that is protecting a Psychic Frog, drawing more cards with an Overlord of the Balemark, subtleties to interact with your board, Felia to blink out the Quantum Riddlers to then work with the Psychic Frogs. A lot of things are happening very differently in the Esper midrange build. The last one is going to be Azorius Blink. Now, this is going to be kind of Blink through and through here. And by Daniel Keeter here in the RCQ of the same event, but like the same venue, but just like a different event in general. This is more of a, usually this is more of like an energy variation. So you're kind of taking Boros energy, but you're adding a blink package to it, which can be really powerful. Usually in this case, you have open slots for things like Recruiter of the Guard. You're playing Starfield Shepherd to be able to, like, you know, tutor out different lands and like 1-drop creatures. You're probably grabbing Guide of Souls, Mockingbird to copy different creatures, Ocelot Pride to be able to flat out the board and make more things here. Felia, again, like your staple cards. You're always playing Felia here. A White Orchid Phantom to be able to, again, be pre-boarded against some of these big mana strategies. So against the Eldrazi decks, you're looking at consigns, right? You're only playing 1 consign, 4 ephemerates here, but what's nice is against those big mana strategies, especially with Titan at the top, White Orchid Phantom acts as a way to stop all of those soul lands that you have. So the bounce lands that are able to come in untapped thanks to an Amulet Vigor, the Eldrazi Temple, the Ugins Labyrinth, as I say in my gameplay videos. You can grab all of that with the White Orchid Phantom and really stick them low on the mana that they have and punish them for things while continuing to get value and tutor through. Turns out Guide of Souls and Ocelot Pride is good enough if you're able to manage the rest of your package with Blink, and obviously you have Quantum Riddler in here. You have no Psychic Frog shenanigans, but Quantum Riddler is going to be good enough in a hand that's able to empty itself. Now, if your hand is relatively low converted mana cost with a bunch of 1s and even 2s, you can empty out your hand pretty quick with Quantum Riddler, and then past that, you still have 4 Solitude. So you're more than happy to be trigger happy and pitch a bunch of cards to your Solitudes to be able to enter your hand and draw more cards with Riddler. Again, the deck really sings with Quantum Riddler, Felia, and some form of ephemerate consign kind of blinked in. Blue and white is the key. Sometimes you add red, sometimes you add black, depending on the color that you add or remove. You definitely make your orientation different. And that's why Quantum Riddler has had a big effect on the modern metagame, creating 3 distinct archetypes, 3 distinct decks under the same archetype, providing value in a whole new way in the modern metagame. The next card that really changed the game, and you know a card is good when it has that legacy effect, right? Pinnacle Emissary has changed Affinity for the better. In my opinion, it has changed Affinity in such a big way. And in modern, Pinnacle Emissary, in similar ways in Legacy, I should also say, is a great way to bring back cheap artifacts. Affinity used to be a slower, mid-rangey deck that just drew a bunch of cards. The problem is that's really hard to do in a format where Orcish Bowmasters exist, right? That is the biggest reason why Affinity is not good right now. It's just Orcish Bowmasters. In modern and Legacy, the deck's biggest problem was that. Past that, in modern, it was also the speed. One of the best finishes you had in the modern format was not only like a cranial plating style effect, but also something like a Kappa Cannoneer, an unblockable, near uninteractable threat in a format that barely played sweepers. Kappa Cannoneer posed a big threat. The problem is it just could not come down early enough. Now, with something like Pinnacle Emissary, you can do exactly that. You can have land, Pinnacle Emissary, then you go Mox Opal, Mishra's Bauble, some type of other zero, some type of other zero, and then all of a sudden, all those zeros coming down triggered Pinnacle Emissary to create enough 1/1 drone tokens where you can then tap them all down for your 7th card to be a Kappa Cannoneer and play that. Now, obviously, that's Magic Christmas Land, but that value proposition is near unbeatable. How many decks do you know can beat a turn 1 Kappa Cannoneer? No, be honest with me. On the play, Kappa Cannoneer gets played. How many decks can beat that? Very few. And even if they can, it is likely a combo deck that probably has the nuts. It's a very hard thing to interact with, especially if you're able to keep that up on mana. Chances are, if you played a Mox Opal and a land, you play out a Mishra's Bauble, you draw into 2 more cards next turn, for turn and the Mishra's Bauble, you find another land, you play another Pinnacle Emissary. That Kappa Cannoneer is almost guaranteed to be unblockable the turn after anyway. And then past that, you continue to draw more artifacts, generate more drones, you're attacking with the drones in the air, which have flying. You have an insane threat package that is coming in for a crap ton of damage, and that is what Pinnacle Emissary is doing in the modern format. Now, in the Legacy format, I don't want to go into too deep, but you have different factors like Tameo, like stopping the power of the 1/1s, and then Orcish Bowmasters, again, being a very prevalent card in that metagame with Dimir being at the top. So it's just different, right? Like if you're drawing cards, which is a central part of 8 cast and just Affinity variants in general, it's going to be very hard to contend with a card like that, pinging down all of your 1/1 drones. But regardless, the deck is able to survive there. So that Pinnacle Emissary is a great way to poop out a board and present a fast clock. But then past that, we see some really cool innovations in weapons manufacturing. Again, another Edge of Eternity's card that I originally thought wasn't really that great. I saw some random builds and like Pioneer and stuff. But weapons manufacturing says whenever a non-token artifact you control enters, you create a munitions token that says whenever this token leaves the battlefield, so whether it be sacrificed or destroyed, it deals 2 damage to any target. So what you can do is, yes, the Pinnacle Emissary tokens are not triggering the weapons manufacturing because this is a non-token artifact, but you have a bunch of zeros that you can have come down and play. What you then do is you find engineered explosives, which again, you can't really quote unquote find. Remember, Urza Saga can't grab this because the converted mana cost or the mana symbol in it is literally not 0 or 1. You get an engineered explosives, which is a playset, which is fantastic because it's going to help you against all the decks that are going wide, right? Engineered explosives can come down for 0, and then for 2 mana, not only is it itself triggering the weapons manufacturing, but it gives you ability to just deal like a bunch of damage to your opponent all at once. I've seen these decks play other artifact creatures and or artifacts that are able to sack other artifacts and everything, right? Like there are so many cool things happening in this deck in terms of the Urza Saga package, just being able to poop out a big board, and it's a board of 1/1 flyers. And then on top of that, you can play a Kappa Cannoneer, and then you have, the Sink in a Stupor, which is in a land that is also able to interact with your opponent. You have card draw, you have counter spells, you have weapons, an enchantment that needs you to play other pieces to deal a bunch of damage to you, but it does so much. This deck is able to do so many cool things that once it's able to get its engine going and put all the pieces together, it really is a work of art. But when it comes to all of that, a lot of what I've highlighted is about speed, right? Decks are very fast in the modern metagame. Affinity is a deck that I just mentioned that can go very fast, have these really explosive turn ones. Boros Energy is another deck that honestly can have insane starts, right? Like if you go Guide of Souls into something like a Ocelot Pride on turn 2, that's a near unbeatable board without a board wipe. You put in a Johnny under there, you're cooking, right? Like the things that you can do in Boros Energy are very fast as well. Is it prowess? It's prowess. It's a fast, it's literally meant to just play a very cheap, efficient creature and play a bunch of zeros. Mishra's Baubles, Mutagenic Growths, and then you Lava Darts in your graveyard can then reping again. It's a deck that's meant to go fast. Goryo's Vengeance, a mid-range strategy that's also using Quantum Riddler as a package alongside Frog, similar to how we saw in Esper Blink, but has the I win variation of being able to discard cards in your hand, such as Atraxa, to the Psychic Frog, and then be able to Goryo's Vengeance it back. So it has an I win button in many ways. A 7/7 coming at you that draws you 4 to 5 cards, and then is able to hit your opponent for 7, gain you 7. That is a massive swing in card advantage. Massive swing in card, board state, and just game advantage. Goryo's Vengeance has that I win button and can be very fast. Amulet Titan, a deck that people have quoted can win on turn 2, more likely on turn 3 and 4, but a deck that has so many different angles. It is a Titan win. It is a ramp deck. It can play Cultivator Colossus. It can play a slower plan, just attacking once with a prime time, or it can create a bunch of prime times. It can go infinite and recur with Aftermath Analyst, a land to copy out your Titans and just make a bunch of them to swing in wide or whatever it is, right? Like it does this a ton of times. And so when you look at the rest of the metagame being so aggressive, so fast, is Modern actually just too damn fast? Is Modern a healthy format? Or is it just a format that we've had so much trauma with that we're okay with the speed of it? As long as Boros Energy is not at the top, we are okay with the Modern metagame right now. I will give you my opinion, and I would love to hear yours down below, maybe as a counter or alongside this. As I kind of alluded to at the beginning of the video, I believe Modern is in the best place that it's been in a very long time. The diversity of the metagame, the amount of archetypes that you can play, the effect of recent standard legal cards that are currently in print, as well as the price accessibility of certain decks in general in comparison to other 1v1 60 card formats. I feel like Modern is one of the formats to play, if not the format to play. I will always push Pauper over that. Pauper, I believe right now, and with many iterations before this, has always been that format. Pauper has been that guy. But Modern, I think, is having its time to shine. And I would be very surprised if something does get banned out of Modern. I used to think, something needs to get banned out of Boros Energy. Maybe something can go. I would still be surprised. Modern is in a fantastic place. I don't think anything needs to change. I think a lot of people have different opinions, and I think the grinders have different opinions. And where I would counter to that is the main reason why I went to go play a bunch of different formats at the same time. I expanded my format repertoire: Standard, Pioneer, Modern, Legacy, Commander, CDH, whatever it is, Pauper as well. I have been playing all those formats because when you get too focused in on one format, you are obviously going to reach a critical mass of games where you are going to start to pick apart and feel the problems of that format. You are going to see the minutia that is the real format, right? And in many ways, people could argue, yeah, there are many problems with this, but there are many problems with all formats. When you look to find a good format, you cannot truly achieve perfection. Perfection is a lie in all states, in all things in life. Perfection is a lie. You can aspire to perfection. You can reach towards it. You can have it as a goal, but you will never reach perfection. And that is what I would counter with. Modern, I think, has the least amount of problems right now, in my opinion, but my opinion is biased, it's skewed, and I have to recognize that. But that is what I provide as a counterpoint. Modern has flaws, but I think the positives outweigh the negatives. I think it's in a fantastic place, And even though Modern does look super fast right now, again, I think the positives of the variety of the formats based on our information of top level tournaments right now, I think Modern's in a great place. And I can't wait to continue to play this format. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, how you're feeling about this format, other formats in Magic in general, and do you feel like something needs to get banned out of Modern come November 10th? Sound off in the comments down below.